Hello, my name is Blindboy Boatclub, and I'm an artist and writer from Ireland. And as part of the St. Patrick's Festival, I'm going to be reading you a short story from my most recent book of short stories, which is called Boulevard Wren and Other Stories, which is a collection of short stories that I wrote last year. I'm going to read you a story called Jolie. Bent over Gonzo Donlan has a string of pure frozen dribble that's hovering down between her lips and the few small stones she's arranging on the mass rock. Dented convections of dawn air threaten a thaw on the spit stick. A sermon hasn't been said on this altar for the best part of 3 weeks. Herself and Jolie Heffernan are searching for the priest Scanlon. Gonzo's arms are splattered with pricky scabs and itches, made worse by the greasy twine that's holding the burlap sack across her back. Her head is a mouse-brown mad wire halo drooped over a gaunt face of green teenage skin, and her heart is in the past, and her teeth are a shore full of shattered shells. Jolie whispers out that the cold will have kept the priest tucked away for warmth. Gonzo hardly raises the neck at this. Sound enters her ear holes as underwater dumb muffle. Her chest drums a thump of fear up into her mind. A purple hum of clouds skirts off a heather-bearded mountain 3 fields over by Gorman Loch, with no promise of glimmer bursting through its belly, pure pregnant with rain. Jolie flakes her eyes up at the fat cloud and feels a jealousy towards its size and girth. "Watch that big dirty hape up above, Gonzo." Gonzo's eyes stay fixed on the stones. She's on her side, with one hand fidgeting them around, and she imagines that there are 6 scuttling lumps of turnips on a plate. She's undecided on whether the 6 pieces of flint should converge in the configuration of a cross, or as some class of triangle. The mind on her is gone blood dumb from hunger. Her activity is interrupted by a violent retch of green sputum, which dribbles down her chin and onto the pebbles. An attempt at a groan is made. This is met with numbness from Jolie, who is now scowling at the imposing cloud, mauve as a brain in the sky, trailing down dirty lengths of distant smudge, broken by a mustard smear of sideways sun that doesn't reach the grass below it. "I saw you sucking down a thistle top 20 minutes back at the gate of Aldersmith's plantation." Gonzo doesn't listen to this. She splays out on the mass rock, exhausted from the strain that the ring of puke put over her body. Jolie is still fixed on the direction of the cloud and the smell of the wind. If it brings a wetting in their direction, all the journey and work is for nought. Rain brings worms and activity from birds and foxes and martins. "That wet won't come over this way, Gonzo. Get up to fuck and start looking." For 6 hours in November cold, they had followed the edge of the River Boyne in search of the mass rock, crawling over the frost-hardened earth. Every grasp at the soil was a horizontal climb up a sheer cliff. Only last Thursday, Jolie had gotten her mouth on a ladle of sheep's broth from the soup kitchen in Navan town. Gertie laughing threw whispers about Father Scanlon missing 3 Sunday services. At Scanlon's mass, he was known to hand out rations of parsnip, which he stole from the landlord Bide. It's this parsnip bounty that has the 2 women up at the mass rock. Save for a few ill-advised thistles, Gonzo hasn't eaten a patch of food in 14 days. The soup in Navan kitchen is unreliable. Once a week the town blackens in a congregation of starving gaunts. Lines the length of fortnights, a pointless endeavour. The soup is a diluted shimmery broth over a scant mystery meat brawn. Brewed for hours in large batches, its nutritional value is questionable. When the anatomy is famished, normal digestive mechanisms cease to function correctly. The starving can suffer a painful esophageal fungus that causes any ingested food to be rejected, followed by an acidic verdigris bile brought up from the liver. The sheer effort that a starving bastard endures to digest food is enough to trigger a state of shock to the nervous system and a failure of the heart. Eating carries a risk with it. The dead are left where they die. Others, dazzled by the famish, follow suit, knowing that a drink of soup will put them down too. Snap out of it, Gonzo. No mind giving up now. There's a trinket full of priest parsnips round here that'll keep us going till spring. Gonzo drops her head, dozy from the hunger journey. Jolie lets her rest. She has a few days on her. She has the blast of energy left from Thursday's soup in her. Her eyes gander around the tangles of emerald bramble that surround the grey mass rock her friend is sprawled across. In front of the monolith, the ground is scant, and the muddy footfall from previous parsnip sermons spells out death in the clay. Jolie's a day or two away from collapsing. Every flex of her limbs has currency. She won't stand to her feet. The effort and exertion of placing the weight of her torso on her legs would consume too much energy. The very act of focusing her attention, the task of asking her mind to search for parsnips amongst thickets of wilderness, is a measured investment. On hands and knees, Jolie takes considered wipes, with her palms in the grass, sloth-like, pushing apart green blades, inching forward, using the full splay of her frame to investigate as much ground as possible, without expending too much energy. Her crawl takes her to a depression underneath a blackthorn bush. Her eyes turn up from her nose to discover the scrunched corpse of Father Scanlon. The priest lies all bird-like, protruding bones under see-through skin, claws curled round a ragged leather satchel. Jolie falls forward onto Scanlon's chest and stretches out, making desperate pinches at the bounty. Her heart feels a loneliness, and she rolls on her back with the satchel held above her face, and she scratches at the inside pockets. Wooden rosary beads and bag lint fall down onto her neck. Jolie rises up on all fours and starts tugging and pulling at the dead priest's rags, frantic gasps, searching for the treasure of parsnips that had initiated her and Gonzo's quest. A feathered dome affronts her forehead when she lies back beside the corpse of the priest. There is a tart cotton desert inside her gob, and she becomes aware of the barren howl of her location. 'Tis clear to her that the priest had eaten any food he had before he died of the sickness. Low wind rolls a growling drone over a distant hill, entrancing her into her own weak thoughts. The boost of adrenaline from the promise of food has deflated. The limbs ache with a wavy pulse each time the chest beats. A frost wind cuts the right-hand side of her face. The faith that she had in her and Gonzo's survival is gone. She will die here on her back, beside the curled priest. She thinks back to a year ago, before the crops grew dirty and wrong. She sees her son Donica on bended knees, with clumps of straw between his tiny hands, turning and wiring them into the shape of a man. Donica's back felt hot when she placed her hand on his shoulder. A breathing sun graced them both with a wave of security and happiness. Across the way was Patrick, skinning peas from their pods in a wooden bowl. His jaw smiled, but there was a worry on his mouth. She fights the blinky visions of his crippled body and dry hair, him howling spew into wet mud, the wicker basket in the corner hiding the sight of young Donica's stiffened body from them both. Every attempt to bring back memories of happiness are assaulted by visions of Patrick's skeletal face and wide open mouth as he crawled over her thighs and out the door of the hut in search of something to eat or drink. Death all around her, under the threat of a distant orange sky. Her memory is interrupted by a splutter from Gonzo, who is still alive on the mass rock. Jolie feels an anger, as if Autonomously, Jolie's left hand stretches out with an energy that she didn't know she had. She feels around the body of the dead priest and envelopes a clasp of shirt fabric, pulling it taut. In her fingers she feels buttons, which she pinches off. The freezing skin of the priest's stomach under her palm. With a force, she begins pulling herself towards the corpse and up onto her knees. She looms over the body and sees the faded green copper buckle on the priest's baggy trousers. She removes the buckle, which has blunt edges. Holding it between both fists, she plunges it down below the chest of the corpse. Into the soft vulnerability under the rib cage she begins to drag, and belly flesh unfolds before her, revealing scant dashes of yellow fat and purple casing. She cuts as far as the belly button and stretches the skin back, opening the priest up like curtains. Innards exposed beneath her nose, and she's thinking back to butchering goats every November and the lie of the land when it comes to offal, reaching into the priest, moving past the guts, piercing unknown membranes, touching the spine and searching around the back, exhuming the liver and kidneys. The kidney is offered up towards the lips. Saliva warms the walls of the mouth for the first time in weeks. She pauses, understanding that something as rich as a kidney could kill a woman in her state. She'll be dead in under a month anyway, she thinks to herself. It's worth the risk. It wobbles brown and purple in her hand, which is gawky from thick black blood. The top of the kidney is placed in her mouth. She begins to suck gently. The taste of iron invigorates her to her core. She moves her teeth down onto the freezing raw morsel. It has a rubbery resistance like a grape. Her mind darts back to memories of full meals, to the experience of satiation. She is remembering the aesthetic joy of eating, the feel in the mouth of a clamber of buttery spuds, the ejaculation of saliva from under the tongue, the heavenly sensation that is a combination of both taste and smell that causes endorphins to shoot off from the brain and arrive in the stomach as an empty, cavernous rumble. She'd forgotten what eating felt like. As her teeth bite down on the resistant, chewy kidney, she feels orgasmic with the tension, the expectation, chewing down slower, and then pop. Her mouth fills with a sharp burst of piss and iron. She chews and savours the penny-sized lump of offal before the agonising swallow down her gullet. The kidney scrapes and scratches the whole way down. She is aware of the culinary journey this tiny piece of food is embarking on as it makes its way down her disused food shaft. She feels her stomach muscles whimper from disuse as they push the piece of kidney down into a barren gut. It makes the ringing in her ears rise to a hell crescendo, makes the headache pound harder. She rests in shivering anxiety, waiting for that familiar retch, that kick in the underneath the belly button that travels all the way beneath your carriage to your arsehole, the kick that pumps it all back up with the acidic green bile and a painful throat and a nose full of snot and bulging eyes and sweat that bursts out cold and gasps of breath and a desire to scream it all out, to shout it out. But it doesn't come. She waits. It doesn't come. Slight sparks of life dart around her skull. Breathing feels easier. Saliva drums around her tongue. She's keeping the kidney down. She feels the hunger again. Not the sickly hunger from weeks of no food, but the familiar hunger from before the earth got sick. From when she had plenty. From when she'd be so full that she'd leave the leftover buttermilk in the bowl for the cat. The hunger a woman has for a second spoon from the plate after a hard day's work. She bites down into the kidney again, this time with relish, with purpose and without fear. She chews it down, savouring the iron, the offal, the urine. She feels scant energy. She feels her life coming back. She feels survival. Gaping down at the disembowelled priest, she cannot find any feeling of humanity. The agony of injustice fights back the rules of society. Her pride has had her blinded. There's food all around. on the roads, in the ditches, in the brambles, in the cottages. She's just never seen it as food. Food has no personality, no thoughts or aspirations, it's just meat. She becomes the worms and the earth, the fungus, the bacteria, the crows. She is nature. After munching both of the priest Scanlan's kidneys, she takes the liver in her fist and crawls out from under the brambles towards Gonzo on the mass rock. Gonzo lies flat, in a state that can't be referred to as either consciousness or unconsciousness. In the distance, the fat mauve cloud cracks a groan of thunder, and Jolie's contempt and jealousy for the thick mass of elevated wet is gone. She hears the thunder as a celebration, and she identifies with it. She drags herself up beside Gonzo and pushes away the pebbles that her friend had been arranging so neatly. She pulls away a piece of the priest's liver, pinches it in her fingers. It wobbles cheerfully under Gonzo's nostrils. Her eyes open. There's an anxiety in them. For all her deathly condition and her weakened brain and body, in Gonzo's eyes is a concern of morality that's been triggered from far off in the back of her mind. Gonzo knows that this is human flesh. Ate it, fucking ate it, or die on a rock. Gonzo is not responsive. Jolie wipes the liver piece on Gonzo's lips and in around her yellow teeth. A tongue darts out and a puff of breath. Jolie notices the wretched fish egg stink from the breath and is enamoured by it. Feels a sense of victory, that her body is registering smells again. Jolie has a determination driven by fury and tears. She's thinking back to her son Donica, dying from the sickness and hunger in her lap. Patrick pulling his hair in balls and hysterics in the corner. Jolie offers the liver to Gonzo's lips. Gonzo chews. Jolie uses her new strength to wrap her arms around her friend. She gently sits her up, knowing that the fibres in Gonzo's body won't have the strength to pull the liver down, and that the assistance of gravity is required. Jolie has Gonzo in a hug. Her head is resting on her shoulder. Behind Gonzo in the distance is the furious bastard of a cloud, roaring out thunder, claps and letting out flashes of activity in its fat folds. The cloud is Jolie's brain, taking nutrients and vitamins and energy, flashing activity and electrodes, sending power to the muscles. She can feel the activity in Gonzo, can feel the liver working down her esophagus and producing a resonant rumble that she experiences empathically in her own chest. The liver is animating Gonzo. They both rest on the mass rock. The cloud is spread out, gone from black violent purple to that cynical Irish grey. It rains down on top of them. The freezing rain is a welcome sensation on the skin of two women who've just got their energy back. They feel it dance on their bare toes and tickle down their cheeks to their chins. Gonzo sucks rain from her lips to wash down the liver. Her eyes stare at nothing, pupils like a stagnant pond. The flesh taste is carving a future trauma in her mind. They both get to their feet and make work on the rest of the priest, eating with fervour each of his lungs. The rain washes out the blood from his body and pools in the open hole of his belly. Jolie reaches into the blood water and tugs out the heart, places it in the leather satchel for later. Gonzo watches on, her teeth gritted together, her wild tangle of curls flat and wet against her forehead. Have you no respect at all for the man? Would you not leave the heart in his chest? What use or difference is a heart or a liver or a kidney to the dead? We'll both see fucking hell for this day. We're living in hell, Gonzo. This is hell. The only heaven I see here is the maggot's heaven, getting fat off the priest if we'd have left him. You had this plan, didn't you? You'd no intention of coming up here for a bounty of parsnips. You knew he'd be fresh from the cold weather. If I had it planned, then I wasn't aware of it. But some force guided me, brought me around to my senses while I was dying, with humanity, with pride. Fuck that shit. I'm out here surviving. Look at you, standing up straight with a sparkle in your eye. The second you're back around to your senses, you're throwing guilt at me. Gonzo backs down. Jolie stands tall, her skeletal hands enveloped like a parcel, tell tales of her past life, breaking horses by the lock, jocking wild fillies, shoving ropes in their mouths, tugging a tameness out of them until their lips bled and her hands burnt. Fine money at the market for a tamed horse. Tough fucker is Jolie. She looks down towards the sparkle of the Boyne, a quarter mile away, and both women bend down the hillside, erect with their bellies full of priest. The sky has darkened to a curtain. The road near the river is a carved-out mud path. Every dandelion, thistle or tree bud has been stripped by the starving. They spot a gang of mudlarkers, crawling on the silt shore, up to their oxters in stink sludge. The air smells like eggs. It is the Dennehy crew, their numbers diminishing by the week. Paddy Dennehy once made a fine living from mudlarking, crawling through river sludge with his brothers, retrieving bottles, vases or scrap metal from the ships that made it up the Boyne. If they were lucky, they'd come across a Bellarmine jug, a ceramic vessel of odd shape, given to navvies for rum rations, with carved out effigies of mad wild woodmen overgrown with hair, fluttering around forests like animals. The jug thrown overboard by a drunk Scot whose sea legs gave him a blast of anxiety when he caught a glimpse of coast for the first time in 6 months. "Any joy, Paddy?" calls Jolie. Paddy Dennehy's white eyes look up from a body covered entirely in thick black mud. There is no verbal response out of Paddy. The hunger has him ready to go. Paddy is searching for mussels on the shore, to no avail. The river life in the Boyne has disappeared over the past 6 months. When a man dies in his cottage, leaving behind a horse or an ass, the starving animal instinctually travels towards water. Hundreds of ownerless horses and asses have gone to the Boyne to die on the shore since the hunger began last year. Their decomposed bodies fill the current with a putrefied effluent, poisoning every perch, eel or mussel for miles downriver and putting the thirst on Navan town. "Give him the heart, Joe," says Gonzo. "Tell him it belongs to a sheep. Look at the state of the pure cunt." Jolie obliges. She reaches inside the leather satchel and removes the priest's heart. The black mud dangle of Paddy's face cracks a white smile that looks like a half moon on a June night. He carefully places the heart in the crusting pocket of his tunic, in amongst the mud, as though he won't eat the heart in the presence of another for fear of having to share. Paddy then hands a Bellarmine jug to the woman. "We'll take that into Navan and sell it to a sailor who's lost his," says Gonzo. "We can't go back into town," says Jolie. "They'll see the life in us. They'll think we've been robbing food from a landlord." "What if we crawl?" says Gonzo. "I'm not getting back down on my knees. We've to continue what we started." 20 minutes away, down by the fields by Gorman Loch, is a collection of abandoned cottages. The two women venture down to rest their heads for the night. When they get there, the familiar signs of death are present. Disused milk churns, scraps of fabric in the muck that probably had bones underneath. They push open a door to a barren space. The tin roof will keep them dry, but the open window lets in the cold. "I'm feeling the hunger again, Jolie. Where will we find something fresh?" "There's nothing around here, Gonzo. We might have to travel as far as Drogheda. Anyone who was here is long gone. Their remains would only make us worse." A silence comes upon them, their hopes dashed. The priest was a lucky find. Anyone alive is going to be congregating near the towns in hope of soup. The towns are a hostile place for two boers with a look of satiation on them. A pitch darkness wipes over the room. A small blast of yellow light becomes apparent in the distance. A cottage above on Neary's Hill has a hint of a candle in the window. The pair leave the abandoned hut and venture up towards the light. As they draw closer, they slow down their pace so as not to spook the inhabitants inside. Jolie creeps up to the gable window to take a look inside. Sitting around a single candle for warmth is an elderly woman, not long for the world by the looks of her, but clearly in ownership of some type of food, if she's the only one left. "I think that's Ida O'Donovan, the cooper's wife," says Jolie. "Hasn't she sons?" says Gonzo. From the emptiness of the cottage, Jolie can tell that Ita has sold every possession she owned, from her husband's tools to the kitchen table and the cooking pot. These are all the signs of a woman whose sons have been given the money to leave the country. She is alone. Gonzo has the rumble in her tummy. Her previous morality has drifted away, and the urge to survive has overcome her. What'll we do? Should we wait for the hunger to take her? Lamp her frame, all shivers. She hasn't a hope. We could go back to that hut for a day or two and wait, then come back up when she's dead. If she can light a candle, we could light a fire in that hearth and roast her. An old one like that could hold out for a week, Gonzo. Look at the eyes on her. Every wrinkle on her face is a past bitterness. She'd be stubborn. She could last longer than us. You'll have to go in and kill her. I'll have to kill her? Why would I have to do it, Joe? Because I ripped open the priest and saved your fucking life. And you embarrassed me down by the mudlarkers, putting me on the spot like that, forcing me to trade the heart for a fucking ceramic jug. You're the reason we've the hunger darting back on us. Gonzo creeps off like a bowled cat towards the door of the hut, while Jolie bowsies outside the window. Jolie notices a small brass box under the old one's chair. Gonzo has the adrenal bulging veins of someone who's about to murder. Jolie worries that Gonzo's thumping heart might send a rush of blood to her head that would knock her unconscious and alert Ita O'Donovan. With a gallant foot, Gonzo buckles through the door bolt and has the old one on the ground in instants. She kneels over the woman's chest and dashes her head against the hearth several times over, overcome with the famish. Ita's limp skull pulls blood across the honest slabs and Gonzo bends down to suck it off the ground. Her mouth is tingling from the memory of the priest's liver earlier that day. She's gone greedy. While Gonzo is contorted on top of the woman, Jolie appears behind her, taking the priest's buckle that she stashed in the satchel with the heart. She pounds it into the back of Gonzo's neck, juttering and staggering it into the cord of her spine, killing her in seconds, like the way you'd kill a crab. Now Jolie paces back and forth with a loathing dread across her. She reaches for the brass box under Ita's chair. When she opens it up, there are metal coins inside. Either the old one's sons are still around, or they died before she could give them the money to leave. Jolie takes the buckle to both of the bodies and removes the soft organs. She teases a vulgar kidney over the flame of the wax candle that the old one had huddled over for months. The forgotten smell of cooked meat floods her nostrils and translates into her mind as hopes and dreams. She feeds herself good. She fills her belly until a sleep falls over her. Cornflower morning light excuses itself into the cottage that honks of iron and cooked blood. The candle is extinguished. Jolie phoenixes up with a strength in her legs that she hasn't felt in months. With that strength comes a guilt. She refuses to let her eyes hit the floor. A dull sickness maroons her torso, followed by a fear that the guilt will make her puke up the fullness in her tummy. She leaves the cottage with a refusal to look back or think about what has happened. She thinks back to her son, Donica, with his bowled smile and curious eyes and fidgety hands. Patrick, with his fine shoulders, an unapologetic laugh that would howl across a valley whenever one of the cats did something gas. His deathly face and sickened posture do not intrude on her memory this time. She has the strength in her to push those thoughts back, to remember them in life and not in death. She heads south below the Boyne, across the heather dells, through the mud. The sky has cleared from the day before, and a blue frost is back. She passes a ragged donkey with a dumb stare and protruding ribs, heading for water to die. Upon reaching the Glencool bog, she comes across the triangular-shaped rock that leads to her old holding. The tiny hut, where she lived a happy life, comes towards her from the distance. She carefully walks up to the yard of the farm. Nothing lies where it was the day she left. Her horse reins are gone, taken by scavengers. The butter churn gone too. Only the stone hut without a door is as she remembers it. Vinegar dread climbs up from her chest to her forehead and tingles down to the end of her limbs. Her breaths are large and laboured with the terror of seeing the remains of her son and husband. There they are, as she left them. Patrick's rags are pressed against the floor, his bones and the brown skin taut across them like a bowron, his mouth wide open. She carefully pushes over the wicker basket to see the collection of bones and fabric that had been her little son. The body she and Patrick refused to acknowledge, such was the distraction of their sickness. Going out to the bog and the side of the gable, she gathers armfuls of dry heather from under logs and places them in the hearth of the fire. On the mantelpiece, she finds the naps of flint she had used to light many a fire to keep her family warm. With purpose, she cracks them together, and bright sparks flicker onto the dried matter. A flame engulfs the fireplace. She carefully collects the remains of her son and husband and burns them down to dust. The funerary respect she affords the remains brings about an internal queasiness. She wonders why these remains are people, but the priest, Gonzo, and Ida O'Donovan were just food. She wonders if she can ever live among other people again. When the fire is burnt out, she takes the Bellarmine jug that Paddy Dennehy's mudlarkers traded her for the heart. She wipes it clean. It is a tan ceramic with a custard gloss. Its raised edges depict a bearded man with hair all over his body, a mad savage of the woods. With a careful hand, she flows her family's ashes from her palm into the jug. Jolie screws it closed. She pats the old one's money in the satchel. She's taken the ashes on a ship. Thank you. That was Jolie, a short story from my book, Boulevard Wren and Other Stories.